We now return to the Peter Schiff Show.
Call in now, 855-4-SCHIFF.
That's 855-472-4433.
Rebel Radio, the Peter Schiff Show.
Joining the program now is Ben Swann, and you may remember Ben. He is a former reality check reporter from Fox 19 in Cincinnati. He also was the anchor on KTSM-TV, which is an NBC affiliate in El Paso, Texas. He has been the recipient of the Edward R. Murrow Award. He got 2 Emmys. Smart guy. He graduated high school at age 11. He was homeschooled. He went on and got a degree in history from Brigham Young at age 15, and then got a master's in history from Cal State at age 16. Ben, welcome to the show.
Peter, thanks for having me on.
Hey, so you got your master's degree at age 16. Did you have your driver's license yet, or did you get your master's before your driver's license?
I actually was able to get my driver's license a little bit after that, but right around the same time. It was coming to Mexico, and it's not as late there, so around the same time.
Yeah, because most kids are you're still a junior in high school when you're 16, and you already had a master's degree. Hey, did all that education help you?
Well, I think all that education delays you in certain ways. Like, for instance, when I was 16 and had my master's, my first job was skinning chickens in a restaurant, fast food restaurant. My second job was bagging groceries at a local supermarket. So some of those things don't change. What does change, though, is mentality in terms of how you view, I think, cultural systems. So the way I view public education and the system that's been set up for people, I tend to think a little bit differently, I think, than a lot of people do. And I look around kind of at the world around me and see it as a lot of the things that have been established as being appropriate, or the quote unquote the way things are done. I tend to challenge those because they don't necessarily make sense to me to fall in line with the way that everyone else is doing things.
Although I think for you, though, college wasn't as big a waste of time because you were out by the age of 16. So, you just did it. You basically just did college and your master's degree instead of junior high school. So, it wasn't like you stayed in school until you were 30 getting these degrees, and then you were plucking chickens. But so tell me what you're doing now. I mean, you left Fox 19, and you got you got something new that's going on, right? And you want to tell my audience about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working through Kickstarter. If your audience has heard of Kickstarter before, it's a crowdsourcing site on the internet where you essentially create creative projects, whether they be movies, CDs. A lot of people do comic books and different things like that. What we've decided to do is to create the largest attempt at crowdsourcing independent journalism that's ever been attempted. And so what we're trying to do is gather together support from people who believe that mainstream media is broken and that media in this country is not talking about the crucial issues that Americans need to hear about. And so we're working to create a new platform via internet, via streaming sites like Netflix and Hulu and Spotify, and get content not just, where folks would already find it within alternative media, but be the bridge between alternative and mainstream media, getting information out to the general public who right now are not hearing a lot of the truth about what's going on in the country.
Okay, first of all, for somebody who goes to the crowdsourcing, they go to Kickstarter, to the extent that they give you any money to help kickstart this project, other than potentially a good news outlet, or maybe you'll help the country, is there anything specifically that's in it for the people who donate money? Did they get anything other than just helping you out?
Well, there are certain rewards that are a part of it, and so one of the things that they receive, depending on the funding level, T-shirts. We have a Liberty is Rising T-shirt. They also receive access to every episode that we create in a downloadable form. They also get to be on conference calls as we're talking about, subject matter for these reports. And obviously those are all fun things, but it's not what the core audience is looking for. What the core audience is looking for, I believe, is an opportunity to say, look, these are the kinds of stories that corporate media is not talking about. And so what we want to do is create a platform that's receptive to stories that people want covered and investigated, and be able to go investigate those stories on behalf of the people, as opposed to spoon-feeding them what we think they should hear about, deserve to hear about, or we want them to hear about. So the idea here is to create something that's really journalism by the people and for the people.
So what is the actual platform, though, that you're talking about creating?
Well, the platform
is this just an internet-based?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is it just a website with content? Is it streaming video, audio? I mean, what do you have in mind? I mean, do you have the whole thing planned out, a business plan?
Yes. Well, what we're doing is this. It's actually multiple. It's on multiple platforms. So we have a website, benswann.com, where all of the videos will be. But we also plan to distribute the videos, number one, through alternative media sites, which means unlike what a lot of folks do right now, if you create content, it's all copywritten, and so no one's able to access your content. It drives everyone to one source. What we're doing is kind of the opposite. We're creating this form of journalism, which are 5-minute-long videos, high-end, high-quality videos, explaining either it's news of the day, meaning there's a big subject, the Edward Snowden case, for instance. We would be covering something like that. We take that and put it together, similar to what the reality check episodes have looked like in the past. And then we would share them not just on alternative media sites, but also we're working to place them on, as I said, streaming sites like Hulu and Netflix and Spotify, to put them on those sites so that the general public is able to access them as an alternative. Now, one thing that we're trying to do, because this would all be crowdsourced and funded, we don't have to be reliant on a platform that says all these sites have to pay us for this content, because the content's paid for. So the idea is to distribute it at low cost or no cost to those major sites. Again, because what we're interested in here is getting the information out to the public, as opposed to creating a model where people are having to buy this content from us.
Right, but if you're assuming you raise enough money to get the thing going, if the platform doesn't have a way of generating revenue to sustain it, I mean, is it going to have to constantly depend on donations to keep it in business, or do you have some kind of model in mind that would sustain this once it got started with some seed money, that it could start generating revenue to continue to operate? I'm assuming that you're going to need some kind of a salary. I don't know who else you're going to hire. People are probably not going to be able to just work for nothing.
No, we plan to make it sustainable over time, certainly. But again, this initial push, because we realize that while we have a strong following, again, within certain segments of the internet and local TV, we have a good following. But we don't want to just preach to the choir, if you will, just talking back to the same folks all the time and staying in our own circle. So the initial stuff that we're putting out won't have any charge associated with it all. Now, as it grows and as there is more desire from the public to see it, and as we see, more and more support for what we're doing, then what we want to do is work with advertisers. But again, it's not controlled by advertisers. It allows us to be in a position where we're always able to be responsive to what the people are looking for, and again, be able to rely on a model that says there are people who are able and willing to support it, whether it becomes a subscriber model at a certain point. That may happen. But in the beginning, what we want to do is at least get the influx of information out to the public that says there is another way of thinking about these stories that are in the public right now, because if you watch mainstream media, you don't realize that there's other ways of thinking out there.
Yeah, well, although there's plenty of, like my radio show, for example. I mean, there is an alternative voice already out there. You think that there's just not enough of it? You think that that another network would or another medium out there, another vehicle out there would be enough, or that maybe would provide some kind of critical mass to get the message out there?
Well, and that's not to take away, right? That's not to take away, certainly, from the work you're doing and the work that others are doing as well. Because, as you point out, there is good media out there as well. What we see is that there's a specific niche in terms of journalism, broadcast journalism, where this is not happening. And so, where talk radio is done very well. There are internet sites. There are great blog sites out there. There's a lot of information out there, but there isn't strong broadcast journalism, and that's where we really want to fill the niche, because we think that that's where, again, we have a voice that's different and uniquely different to what's happening in the media landscape than a lot of the folks who are out there right now.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I just tried to pull up your website. Now I'm trying to stop it because it was immediately went to the Kickstarter. So when did you when did you launch the Kickstarter effort?
Kickstarter actually launched yesterday, so we're 1 day into it.
All right,
Today is our second day of it.
And what's the goal? How much money do you need to raise to make this thing happen?
The goal here is $1.25 million. It's what our initial goal is. Which some people have looked at and said, wow, that seems like an awful lot of money to try to put this together. But again, what we're creating with it are 100 episodes of Ben Swann Full Disclosure. And again, these are high-end episodes. So we're putting a lot of money into the production value of it, the production cost of it, because we want to be competitive again with what's out there. Look, Peter, as you know, you can watch TV all day long.
Do you really need to create 100 of them? Why don't you start with 5 or 10? Then you don't have to raise as much money.
Well, that's a good point. The problem is that if we do 5 or 10 and it goes great, then we've got to go back immediately to Kickstarter and say, hey, let's do it again, another 5 or 10 episodes.
Yeah,
so
but what if you make 100 episodes?
One season's worth.
Yeah, but what if you make 100 episodes and after the first few episodes you realize that it's not as effective as you had hoped, but you've already made all these episodes? I mean, maybe an incremental approach might be a little bit more effective, because at least if you find that, hey, the first few episodes aren't doing as well, maybe you can tweak it. Maybe you can do it a little differently. I don't know if you need to just go out and do 100 of them.
Well, you make a good point. The reality check episodes that we've already put together, that I've already done when I was with Fox 19, we've done over 350 of those episodes. They've been viewed over 10 million times worldwide in 140 countries. So we already have a very good track record in terms of getting that content out, and we know that there is an interest in it, not just here in the U.S., but internationally as well. What this allows us to do is continue to produce that stuff, number one, at a higher quality than what we were doing before, and number two, to have no restrictions on the issues that we're talking about, because regardless of how successful they've been, there have always been, pretty strict restrictions on what we were able to do as far as content, and that won't be the case anymore.
Yeah. And how many people are working with you on this project?
Well, right now we have a production team. So the production team is represented by Richter Studios, and that's probably anywhere from 8 to 10 people. Plus we have our web team. We have another team as well. See, here's the other thing that we're doing, Peter, is this is actually a 3-level platform. So the first part of this is Ben, I got a barking dog, but we got a commercial coming up. So let's talk a little bit about this after the break. And also I'm interested in some of the topics for these videos, or maybe, what were some of the topics of some of your most viewed videos that you produced before with Reality Check. So we'll talk about that. We got a quick break. I'm going to stop that dog from barking. We'll be right back.
Yeah, baby.
To President Obama, Secretary Geithner, Madam Pelosi, and all of the socialist econ professors across America.
We're sorry. Peter Schiff is back on the air.
We are talking with Ben Swann about his new effort to kickstart his media project, alternative media platform. Ben, you got a name for your new venture?
Yeah, it's called the Liberty is Rising Truth in Media Project.
All right, that's a mouthful.
Liberty is Rising. I want to tell you something about this real quick, because what's important about this is it's actually a 3-level platform. So the first level we've been talking about, which is to create these videos. But there's the second and third parts of it it's actually a platform to inform, to engage, and then to activate. And so our goal is to also work with groups on the engagement level, student groups with other journalists around the country, groups who are in the Tea Party movement, had been in the Occupy movement, taking justified anger from both sides, and working with those groups to find common ground to really enact change in the country. So on one part, it's a journalism effort, but there's also an activism effort there as well, where we're working with these groups. So on July 28th and 29th, we're going to Iowa. and we're going down to Athens, Georgia, and we're going to be meeting with folks in both those places to talk about how to really crowdsource effort among them to get change made on their local levels. And so that's another part of this platform that we're working through.
Hey, how does crowdsource? How is the revenue looked at? I mean, is it considered income to you guys, or is it a gift?
No, it's considered business income.
All right, even
So
though in
the way
many
it's set up is
cases
it flows through Kickstarter, who then is processed by Amazon and then paid out by Amazon. It's business income.
Yeah, and like Kickstarter, what, they take 5 or 10% or something like that? Is that how they work it?
Kickstarter takes anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending on the project.
Oh.
Amazon takes 3 to 5%.
So it has to go through Kickstarter and then Amazon as a middleman?
It goes through both of them. And the reason that we chose to go that route through them is because there's a lot of accountability set up through this. So it's an all-or-nothing project, meaning that in the event that we don't reach our funding goal, the money is then returned to anybody who donated to the cause and to the project. It's refunded back to them. So there's a lot of accountability set up with Kickstarter, which we like because we
So
feel
it's
like,
100%
again,
refund, meaning that Amazon and Kickstarter don't get any of their money if they refund 100% of what was contributed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And on the site, is there an entire use of proceeds? Is every penny accounted for on your end as far as if you raise this money, where it's going?
What we've done is we've explained to people what the platform is and how it would work through these 3 levels. What we have not done is put up a line item budget for it, but we have put up the platform of how it would work and how it would be spent and what it would go for.
But how do people know that it's not all going to salaries? You know, that it's all going into production and it's not a bunch of people paying themselves big salaries with all this Kickstarter money?
Right, which is a good question. I think, again, when you look at the project, and as we laid it out for folks, creating 100 of these episodes, 5 minutes apiece, you're talking about an extensive project. You take, on the other hand, compare it to other projects that have been on Kickstarter. For instance, Zach Braff just did a project. He's the guy from Scrubs to create a movie. They raised $3 million on that. The cost of the movie he's projecting, and as he's explaining it, anywhere from $5 to $6 million. Well, in terms of time, we're actually creating more content than most movie makers would create in terms of time.
Did the people who contributed? Did the people who contributed that $3 million? I mean, what do they get? Do they get a free DVD? Do they get tickets? I mean, what do they get for the money, or is it all just a gift?
Again, as I said, there's certain rewards that you get along with it. Most of those things are like prizes, but the contributors mostly don't contribute in order to get something out of it, so much as helping create the project. The idea is that rather than having to go through, whether it be the movie bosses, the movie production companies, or in our case, going through, major networks and trying to get someone to approve what we're doing, it's go directly to the people because this is the content that they're looking for. The content is
so it's mainly they're trying to support. People are trying to support the message of the movie, so it's kind of like a charitable donation because they believe in the cause and they want to help get the movie going, and they think, well, maybe the studios don't really want to produce it because it's not necessarily geared simply towards a big audience and making money. It's kind of a message, and so people want to subsidize the production to get that kind of content out there. So we don't have a lot of time left. I mean, what do you envision? What's the first? Do you have any idea what the first video is going to be about? You got that one, kind of framed out?
You know what? I don't. And the reason why is, again, because folks who have followed me for a while know the kind of content that we do is very responsive to whatever's happening. We've been talking about a lot of these civil liberty issues, whether they be drone strikes on U.S. citizens. And I was the first guy in the country to actually ask President Obama to his face about the constitutionality of his kill list. So it's those kinds of subjects, depending on what's happening. We've actually been way ahead of the curve in a lot of those issues. So once we're all funded and ready to go, that would be sometime in the fall. That's when we would actually launch. So it would be difficult for me to project that. But I will tell you this. The kinds of things we're working on will continue to be about civil liberty issues, about indefinite detention, about drone strikes. We'll continue to talk about NSA wiretaps, IRS, all that kind of thing. Also, we want to do some creative stuff. So, for instance, we've talked a lot about the Federal Reserve over the last few years. And, this December, is obviously an historical time for the Federal Reserve. So we would actually want to create some content, go out to Jekyll Island, explain to people how it all started, how it began, where it comes from. So there's a lot of historical content.
You know, Ben, unfortunately, the time is right for you. Liberty is not rising; it's actually falling. So we need it to rise, but it's going in the wrong direction. But there's a lot of content for you. It's a great time for your project. We need more lights of truth being shined on this, not only civil liberties, but what's happening with the economy. How and the collapse that I believe is coming. Hey, so good luck. Again, it's benswann.com. SWANN.com. Go to Kickstarter if you want to pitch in. Hour 2 of the Peter Schiff Show. Coming up next, we'll be right back.